Welcome to the first episode of RPG Acquisition Disorder with the RPG Reanimators. In this series, we're going to be taking a look at RPGs, products, scenarios that we've bought and haven't gotten to the table yet or haven't gotten the time with that we want. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Alex.
Today, I'll be talking about The Synthetic Dream Machine, a psychedelic role playing experience by Luca Reyes. It focuses on this ultraviolet grassland setting that he has, but all the books are pretty wild.
All right, and I'll be talking about Jinkies, written by Tobias Strauss. It is a powered by the apocalypse Scooby-Doo core tabletop RPG focusing on portraying meddling kids and their stupid mascot solving mysteries. I will also be talking about F.I.S.T, which stands for Freelance Infantry Strike Team by Claymore Role-Playing Games, which is not the above at all.
All right, so let's see what's in the library. Alex, you want to talk about Jinkies?
Sure. Let's talk about Jinkies. Jinkies is a tabletop role-playing game which is powered by the apocalypse. So what that means is it's got degrees of success where you get 10 or more on a 2d6 roll where you get a complete success. If you get, I believe, a 7 to 9, that's a partial
Hmm.
success, and then anything lower than that is a failure or a complication. It basically, the gist of it is you're a team of like teenagers based off of Scooby Doo. You might have a mascot. It could be anything. Doesn't
Hmm.
have to be a dog. And you go around, drive around to different areas, solve mysteries, unmask the villain, go through basically the ebbs and flows of how like the Scooby Doo TV show um, went. And sometimes there's even like rules for celebrity cameos that
Phyllis
show up.
Diller, I think, is the example.
Yeah.
That might have aged a little bit. Like, I'm not sure that hits as much these days, but yeah, you could do something like maybe I don't know. Taylor Swift shows up.
God, I
Her tour bus
no.
broke down.
Yeah, it would emulate like those episodes where the Harlem Globetrotters showed up
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they'd join in. Or I remember they even had like Batman and Robin show up in the
yeah,
Scooby-Doo
yeah,
episodes, and that was
S-
always really fun.
yeah. Where are you or something? I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I've actually gotten to play in one of these with the United Adventure Company a year or two back. We played Jinkies in it. It was goofy fun, just like you're saying.
How'd you find it?
Good. Like the Powered by the Apocalypse works pretty simply. If you've played one, you know roughly how to do the dice for
Yeah.
the other. Um, I think a lot of it depended on the GM. He was a little bit older than I was, so some of the references didn't quite hit, but
Mhm.
I think everybody kind of knows the Scooby Doo feel, so you it comes out as a wash.
I am looking at the book here, and you've got a lot of different playbooks, which is kind of like
Mhm.
classes or occupations. We've got like the leader, the mascot, the weird one, the looker, the smart one, the talent, tough one,
Mhm.
and then you have your basic moves, which is very powered by the apocalypse. Now my understanding with Powered by the Apocalypse is that players coming into it might have a tough time adjusting because they look
Yeah,
at these basic moves in these playbooks and it's like, oh, I have to say it by the title and I have
right.
to tell my keeper or GM, and then
I'm
I
doing
do it.
exactly this.
But the way I've played in it, in my personal experience with like let's say Matthew Sanderson, who runs a lot of cult,
Hmm.
and that's Powered by the Apocalypse, is that I'm not even looking at the playbook
Right.
or the maybe I am looking at the playbook for like the special stuff I can do, but not looking at the basic moves. I'm basically role playing
Right.
my character and I'm interacting with the world and saying I want to do this, and then the GM matches that what your actions with a basic move. And I found that to be so much smoother and so much more
Yeah.
satisfying.
Yeah, I think the kind of Brindlewood Bay-esque thing that they do a lot more of is it simplifies down to like one
Mhm.
move, and then you just anytime there's something, you roll that.
Yeah,
I think this one has a little bit more uh grittiness to it, I guess, in terms of granularity of the rules, but
sure.
it's kind of the same sort of thing. Yeah, I like it. Book wise, I don't know how much you've read through it. Uh, decent product.
Oh yeah. It's got 3 adventures, I believe, in it. So that's always great because usually these
Yeah.
kinds of things have one or two.
Yeah, that was nice. It seems like they gave some pretty good examples. They have
Hmm.
rules at least for like capturing the guy doing the mask reveal, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So that's I mean that's good that they've kind of covered the tropes that you're looking for. And it kind of breaks it down into an act structure, which
Hmm.
is nice if you're a new GM. You can look at that for determining when things should happen in your game.
Right. And the moves are so like on par for being like trying to emulate that 60s cartoon. Like one of the moves is like get 'em gang. And it's basically just like catching the bad guy after setting up a trap. And the leader also has a special move where it's like, oh, here's the plan, and then
Mhm.
here's a Scooby snack to motivate the other players, characters. It's just a feel good, family friendly type game.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that really brings back like why I'm even interested in this because it really brings back the nostalgic cartoon and the childhood I had watching a bunch of TV.
Mhm.
I would say most of my humor has been affected and shaped by the cartoons I watched as a kid. I love crude humor. I love just like
Yep.
goofy, almost absurdist humor and violence. So
Yeah, Cartoon
yeah.
Network got to you. That's Cow and Chicken, Courage the
Hmm.
Cowardly Dog, all that stuff. Yeah,
I'm a
has
Cartoon
that.
Network kid.
Yeah. Same, same. So, what would you do with something like Jinkies if you were going to run it? Would you try for a campaign? Would you do a one-off? What are you thinking?
I think it built and reflecting off the show that it's based off of, it can be very episodic.
Hmm.
I know the newer shows, the newer Scooby-Doo has an overarching plot and it has the
Hmm.
capabilities to seed that, and that's great. But I would stick with episodic
Yeah.
because I don't know, Powered by the Apocalypse doesn't really have the complexities that I covet when running something longer form.
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
good fun that you can pick up with like minor prep because most of it's the animator slash GM playing off what the players are doing.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of bringing in all the tropes and whatnot,
Hmm.
like the Saturday morning. Yeah, I wonder if you could do something fun with like having commercials play in between,
Ooh,
like a
okay.
break or something. Be like, here we go. Because I think I know at least Brindlewood Bay, and I'm sure something in here has that same sort of like you can cut to commercial and then come back and something has changed or make a cliffhanger.
That's very
Really
public
lean into it.
access,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
commercial, because I can see how the commercials kind of relate to the videotapes you can find in public
Mhm.
access.
Yeah, that's something we'll have to
Just
talk
mix
about at
both.
some point. Yeah, the idea of the unseen,
Hmm.
SCENE is something that Jason Cordova talks about a fair bit of.
That's a very
Cre-
cool.
yeah, creating that scene that's not directly
Mhm.
integral to the plot, right? Like
Yeah.
the characters won't ever see it, but
Yep.
it builds out the
And
world.
the player characters aren't in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just thinking of that idea, you can have that in your own games,
Hmm.
like outside of Jinkies and those other systems. Like I can imagine you have a short intro
Yeah.
in a Call of Cthulhu scenario where you're playing as like you're given temporary
Yeah.
PCs and you
Yeah.
just get killed off, and then you cut to modern day or like
That'd
when
be
the
fun.
PCs come in. I know
Yeah.
Delta Green does that for one of their campaigns.
Yeah.
I believe it's called
Iconoclast does that.
Iconoclast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that being fun or having a scene where you're like for Jinkies, you'd be like explicitly you cannot solve who the person is,
Hmm.
but maybe it's everybody else gets scared by
Yeah.
the guy the first
I
time.
mean, it's all flavor, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
it depends on your group because some people don't want to waste their time with, or perceive to waste
Yeah.
their time with something they can
Right.
never solve in the moment.
Right. Why would I have this? It's tangential. Well, yeah, but
Right.
it's fun.
Yeah.
So
Well, a lot to
why
think about.
why has Jinkies not hit the table yet? Besides, we
Uh,
can't say times. I'm gonna make this rule here. We
fuck.
can't say we don't have time for it. That's the
Um,
one rule.
okay. All I have in my notes is a frowny face. So, I will say why hasn't hit my table? because I would say my home group is busy with other
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably going to be a theme for a lot of this will be just it's on the list somewhere, but we haven't gotten to it. That's why it's acquisition disorder. We want to
Oh
play
yeah.
these games, we just haven't yet.
Maybe we'll get a game going on the Discord server. That'd be fun.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
I'd like to do like a maybe we could even do a Saturday morning one.
Saturday morning
Yeah.
Jinkies. Yeah. That'd be kind of cool. We'll
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I digress because I think it's time to talk about Synthetic Dream Machine.
Yeah, Synthetic Dream Machine. Again, these are all books that are by Luca Reyes. That was probably most well known by Ultraviolet Grasslands. It had a system that Luca wrote for it that was called CCAT at the time. It went out to something, it's an acronym of some kind. It became Synthetic Dream Machine, and this is the rule book for it, is the Eternal Return key. And this is a really interesting way to do character creation. And I'll do a flip through of it a little bit more, but it's written as an in-universe kind of story where it's like, oh, this demon is controlling the player who is you, and you're running through these tables to randomly generate like where are you from, what happened, what kind of magical spells do you know, what kind of uh character class do you have, and it does like the wizard thief fighter type thing. It's very uh old school revival renaissance type thing. um
Is it super lethal?
there's I think it can be,
Ooh,
but
okay.
that's one of those sort of like your player, you hit 0 and then you roll and see, and it's usually not great for you, but that's the point of a lot of those types of games, right?
Yeah.
Is you don't get in a fight unless you really
It's a
know you can
thinking
handle
person's
it.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And there's a couple of other bits. There's the there a red door. This is very much supplemental spells or locations to run across, and it fits in that gonzo sort of psychedelic feel where you might run across a hill that literally just talks, like it's a talking hill. Okay, like how does your caravan react to this? In kind of in the same field, there's this really cool cover of Magitechnica that it's got all these different spells throughout that do various sort of things that your characters can do. Balance, there's some balance there, but it's not as big a focus as
What's
like a
balance?
D&D.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Is you might find a spell that lets you climb to heaven. That's,
We'll figure it
that's
out,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Or it might be one that cleans cleans the house. It kind of just depends. Um, and I think it's really neat. Ultraviolet Grasslands and uh, beautiful art. If
I can
you're,
see that. High
yeah,
contrast.
yeah, well, I'll have a nice video of some of these things, but it does a lot of kind of Mobius style art that's very evocative and interesting. I have no idea as a GM how to bring players into this because it is so gonzo. Is I think you'd have to just kind of roll with it and say, this is the rough setting. Don't worry about everything. We'll cover it as we go. Because even the glossary at the end of terms they use is like 3 pages long.
Jeez.
It's pretty
It's like the
wild.
Dune back back of the book with all the
Yeah,
terms.
exactly, exactly. And it's neat, like the core idea of it is it's basically a road trip
Mhm.
where you just set off from uh wherever the origin is, I forget exactly, but you're going towards this final city, and there's different paths you can go that take different times, but you follow kind of a, this is the GM screen, a flow chart to say like what do you run into, what kind of rations do you hit, and it becomes this very almost like procedural crawl with these really interesting sort of encounters that you run into that can be anything.
Wow. So how do I play? What kind of system is it? It's the D20
That's
system.
it's a yeah, it's a D20. I Boy, what a great question. It's fairly straightforward. There's kind of the six basic stats that you'll have out there. And if I'm remembering right, you're rolling under. Let me double check. That's a great question. If you want to look at the system, there is what's the word I'm looking for? Or you are rolling over. You're rolling over a specific roll number. Um, but the system's online for free. If you want to look up syntheticdreammachine.com, it'll have a basic version of it. You can actually get this book, the bare bones edition, for free online. So you can read all the rules. It just doesn't have all the pretty art running. Like there's literally like a little comic in the sidelines that goes page to page and follows along with it.
Very nice. I like that. So, how would you highlight its like influences and how would you want
Mhm.
it to run when you do run
I
it?
think you gotta randomize it. Like,
Okay.
I'd want to do a longer term campaign type thing with the crawl aspect of you're going from place to place,
Yep.
because I it seems like that's the focus of a lot of it
Do you ever
and
get to
the
the
fun.
place?
Yeah, you can, and
Oh,
there's things you can do at the final place too. Some of the books and whatnot cover that of like, oh, you've reached the final city. It's not just a journey. You can actually have things that you accomplish there, which is
finality.
very cool. Yeah. Yeah, and it's very old school and like you gain experience by spending your money to carouse. So you are involving yourself in the world to party just to level up. So it seems like a really neat way to kind of inhabit the world.
That is
I
cool.
worry a little bit that the gonzo-ness might be difficult to manage kind of stakes
Well, can you
with.
give him an example of how crazy it gets?
I mean, you can run across synthetic harvesting machines that might have like an identity crisis or a space capsule that has strange technology in it. There's a bajillion little creatures, there's other caravans. It's pretty wild.
So
Like,
this leans towards, sci-fi more than fantasy.
yeah,
Okay.
it's well, there's sci-fi in it, that's for sure. Maybe like kind of not post-apocalypse, but like that merging of you're so far past magic and technology, it's difficult to tell the difference between the two.
It's
So
just an
there's
acid trip.
right, right.
But not
There
as much
are
as an acid trip as what, Super Collider?
I would say they're probably similar in
Ooh,
terms of
okay.
tone. Yeah, yeah. But like you might run across a kind of a more classic, if you look, there's like a frozen sort of body, but that might be a technological freezing rather than a magic spell, or it could be the other way. It's pretty out there. And I've played games like that in the past. I've played Troika before, and that is also completely just a gonzo setting where one of the missions might be you're going into this hotel, you just need to get to the party on the roof. And that is a whole adventure just to get to the roof of this hotel.
Very cool.
And I haven't gotten it to the table because I think I hit that level of like, how do I get people invested in this world in a not throwing them into the deep end type thing? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of terminology and ideas that you probably want to introduce early, but you can't throw everything at them. You can't be like, also, there's uh, firms that are like created life forms that you'll interact with, but not right now necessarily. Also, the cats are psychic and control the starting city. Oh, and also, there's just a lot.
From what I imagine, there's two ways you could go about this. You could just
Mhm.
throw them in and introduce these new elements one by one, but also in a way where you'll they'll be able to identify what it is, like
Yeah.
in game, or you just you give them the entire like background
The dump.
off the
Yeah.
bat, or actually, the third way, introduce like an intro adventure that kind of
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
lulls them into it, like a combination of the two.
Yeah, I bet you could write something like that, something short, and there probably is in one of these books a good just starter kind of
Yeah,
randomized thing you could do before you get everybody on the road and give them a mission. Yeah, might have to try that.
do it.
I'd love to. Again, like this is, I think this author, I have his really showing off the acquisition disorder. I got the Long Winter books as well from them. Uh, this one's a more kind of classic fantasy setting set in some mountains, but the art that Luca makes is all very evocative and really makes me want to run these games. They're just so neat.
It's
J- uh,
quite beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Which is an interesting sort of thing to have where the focus isn't necessarily on go get the gold, go get something. It's a road trip adventure, right? Is let's go see the weird stuff and
Mhm.
experience it.
Cool.
But yeah, let's finish up and talk a little bit about Fist. Now we have played Fist. So
Yes.
what are you thinking here? The Kickstarter's not here yet.
Oh, well, I've already got the Ultra Edition because I'm a late backer. But yeah, I really have come to enjoy Fist and I want to play more of it. It's really great. It's not exactly powered by the apocalypse, but it kind of is because it's got that 10 or above complete
Yep.
success, 7 to 9 partial, and then 6 and below failure. Where it's just 2d6 plus attribute and
Mhm.
it's everything but in name of powered by the apocalypse system. So what's the premise? You're part of this like strike team that's like expendable. Everyone's got crazy powers
Yeah.
where your player characters are composed of two traits, at least from the start, where you roll a D666 table, which is where you roll three
Yeah.
D6 and then take each number. And let's say I might get something like Doppelganger and Rage, and those are my like powers that I can have. And it's a super cool system because each trait determines your attributes and like what kind of
Mhm.
equipment you have. And super lethal, like you've got like
Yeah, yeah.
6 HP, and guns do a D6, assault rifles do a D6 plus 1. It's horrifying, but it's also super fun because it's got a lot of DNA from really fun like shows and movies and video
Yeah.
games like Metal Gear Solid. I like to take a lot from like James Bond and like
Yep.
Fast and
Yep.
Furious and like Call of Duty
Yep.
because that just makes for a great game.
A team's got to be on there too.
Oh
I
yeah, for
always
sure.
feel like
They
just those random characters are
hmm
wild. I think we had what like a cannibal skeleton man on one of them.
yes,
There's a cloud man or a doppelganger that could be like I've been a control panel this whole time. Ha 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 ha.
some wild.
Yeah, that's
I've had
fun.
some wild games when I did manage to play this where it's like because I wrote a lot of like different scenarios for this.
Hmm.
One of them was like on a Cold War train, and I had one of my player characters exfil on a helicopter, but then that helicopter got like hit, and then that
Yeah,
player
that was
fell
cool.
out, and they were like hanging on by a rope from their ankle, and they were still shooting and providing cover fire upside down for the people on the train.
It's got that pulp feel, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
you really hit that action movie feel with it, and it's lethal, but you still can do that and
right.
not feel like you're about to just immediately combust every time you try and shoot a grenade launcher.
That is right, because you do have those war die, which you can
Yep.
roll and add on to the roll after you've rolled. And yeah, I just really resonate with the pulpy action movie
Hmm.
vibe
Hmm.
because yeah, it's my childhood. I watched a lot of action movies as a kid.
See, that would be another. Maybe we need to do that as like a two-parter, right? We
Oh
do
yeah,
one Jinkies and then one Fist afterwards
with the same
because,
characters from
yeah,
Jinkies, no, as they
well,
get abducted by the government and given mutant
no,
powers.
that I could actually see. I would
Jeez.
buy that. I mean,
Hmm.
there are comic books where Scooby Doo's like post-apocalypse type stuff, right? And
No
they're
way.
yeah, yeah. I
Oh
forget who
God.
publishes them, but they're very like into the world, edgy type stuff.
That's
And
horrifying.
the archetypes can work, so why not? It's fun.
That does sound kind of fun now. We're gonna do a Jinkies freelance infantry strike team collab. Oh boy.
It's very
Ooh,
GI Joe in that kind of like you bring in these weirdos that are like, I have a bulldozer, and that's your personality,
yeah.
and that's who you continue with for like 3 sessions until they die heroically.
Yeah, until their bulldozer blows up,
Yeah,
like from trying to prevent World War III. Unlucky.
yeah, truly. Snake people should have let him go, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's such a versatile system, and there's just so many beautiful tables that you can use to
Yeah.
just randomly generate. You've got tables for like NPC guard conversations when they talk about the baseball game or like their birthday coming up or
Really? That's
retirement.
awesome.
They've got like different anomalies, monsters, robots, battlefield cities, nature
Mhm.
rooms, structures, legends. Like I'm talking about maybe roughly 100 pages of
That's
just
cool.
randomly generated
That's cool.
tables.
They're doing the Mandelbrot set. Is that right? There's some campaign that they've brought out.
Hmm.
Are you thinking about running that?
Yeah, that does sound really fun. Now, I do like how if you survive the mission, you keep all the
Mhm.
equipment you get, and
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
level up and choose to get more health, more luck, or another trait. And it's just really fun how you can see how these player characters evolve over time. So I would definitely be interested in some campaign play.
Yeah, the war dice always for me, it's like that's just what I want more of. I want
Yeah.
another trait, sure, but boy, I need those lucky dice so I can survive the dumb things I choose to do.
I really like how they do character replacement too,
Mhm.
because if you're part of this top secret organization and like you lose a player, it's kind of easy to put in a new player character
Yeah.
in the middle of the operation. I've done in the past where it's like if you've had a player like die, like further on in the base, you have the enemy soldier take off their like mask and it's that new character. It's like I'm in. Or like they're just dropped in via helicopter or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
pneumatic tube, who knows.
Yeah, and I think when you've run it, you've had kind of recurring side characters.
Oh yeah.
So it does get that fun cartoon feel where you're like, oh no, it's the same guy we saw 2 episodes ago, the
That
cyborg mid.
ninja cyborg.
He's
Yeah.
like, yes, my marriage with the printer that you saw two 2 episodes ago is not going well. So here I
And there's
am.
there's room for drama too, because if you introduce those
Hmm.
recurring characters, are they going to be your friend this time or your enemy?
Oh, that would
Because
be
they can
fun.
be like mercenaries, just like
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, that would be heartbreaking if we had to kill that cyborg guy.
right?
He's pretty cool.
I hope his marriage works out.
Yeah. Awesome.
But yeah, why hasn't it hit my table?
Hmm.
I'm gonna say time.
Ah,
I
brutal.
know I couldn't say time, but really, it's not enough
It
time.
I think the prep time to come up with the adventure is what I
Right.
would worry about, but maybe using that Mandelbrot set that they have,
Hmm.
doing something like that would be interesting. That's get kind of like an annihilation feel from what I've
Okay.
read of like you're
Oh, an
infiltrating
exclusive
an
zone.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that might be fun, but I really enjoyed when you ran it. It felt more globe trotting, right? You'd end up being put into like a kind of a Russian analog in winter, invading the base, and then would be across the world in some like South American country,
Yeah.
helping a resistance or something like that. That's part of the fun.
Of course, you're a secret agent slash like mercenary that is has no allegiance to anyone besides your mercenary company.
Besides Fist.
Yeah. So super cool. I've been writing a few adventures, so probably
Awesome.
release those very soon.
Yeah, we'd love to see him. But okay, well, thanks for listening to Acquisition Disorder from the RPG Reanimators. Uh, I mean, we hope that a brief look at these games has kind of piqued your interest and keep a look on the show notes to see where you can get these. I know a lot of the stuff I mentioned is from Exalted Funeral, but there's also itch.io pages that have quite a bit of this. I know F.I.S.T at least has the rations, those little
Yes.
side things. So there's
Pamphlets.
these cool pamphlets you can get. I don't think Jinkies has had a lot of extra support, but you can get a lot from just the base book. So uh, join us in Discard. Join us in Discord to chat a bit more about these games and other things that we're hoping to run, and listen to the RPG Reanimators on your podcast of choice. So we'll see you next time with our next batch of ill-advised purchases. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out the RPG Reanimators podcast for horror scenario reviews, interviews, gaming discussions, and more.